Friends, foes, and those who have not yet made up your minds, welcome to Concentrate's Ypsi Story Slam. Thank you all so much for coming. I am your host, Misha Tuesday. That's Tuesday like the day of the week. It's an obscure name that was handed down from my great-great-grandmother. Her first name was July 22nd. It a simpler way of naming people back then. Tonight we're going to hear real-life stories from real-life Ypsilantians, and when I say Ypsilantians, I mean Ypsilanti City and Ypsilanti Township. The event is sponsored and hosted by Concentrate Media. Many of you may know Concentrate as a solutions-oriented journalism outlet online for Washtenaw County. They also run an embedded reporting program here in Ypsi and Ypsi Township called On the Ground Ypsi, for which I am doing community engagement, including running this event. So we will hear real-life stories from Ypsi, and our first speaker helpfully handed me a sheet to read his bio. So I'll, just to start though, one time I was at this show, and right when it started, the DJ kicked all his equipment over. It was a real weird thing. But our first speaker, ladies and gentlemen, born July 4, 1985 in Detroit, Michigan, Brother Noah is the creator and founder of Book Day, Booker T. Washington Holiday, and the Black Empowerment Awards, hosting community events in areas of gardening, entertainment, book signings, health, and economics workshops. Say hey, everybody, to Brother Noah.
Thank you. How y'all doing? Yes, indeed. So I came to tell y'all a true story, right? So I'll start with me going off into another state and branching off into Florida in 2008. I moved and left the community of Ypsilanti as a youth. And so this story is called Book Day, right? And this is how it starts. It starts with the change in my life, right? Because this Book Day is a change at Ypsilanti, and it starts with the change in my life first. And so it starts with Florida and me going out there and starting my career in photography. And my mom had moved from Michigan, so it left me and my brothers here to fend for ourselves. Life got hard for me in my early 20s by myself. And so as a college dropout, trying to figure out how I'm gonna pay bills, I kind of got homeless, right? And then called moms, went down to Florida for a minute, and I instantly in my mind, I didn't want that experience for me again, right? And so I made a plan and said, hey, I'm gonna be a photographer. And before I went to Florida, I made up my mind that I was gonna make a difference in my life. And I put this study together, how do a person become a photographer? And this is when I learned that you can create your own life and start a new career any day of your life just by Googling what you wanna learn, right? And so a YouTube video popped up, and I started learning on lighting, how to become professional, what equipment to get. It taught me a recipe, right? A recipe of success, of how to become successful in this area of study. And I used that recipe for every area of study that I ever had an ambition in my life to ever want to learn, right? So now I'm on this top-notch level of experiences and knowledge because I've used this recipe with not just gardening, making my own jewelry, creating a platform of events that created a holiday called Book Day, Booker T. Washington Holiday. And it started with me becoming a photographer, learning this first practice of this recipe. And so my first year as a photographer, going into 2019, establishing Star 6 Entertainment and Photography, I was working with an artist, a music artist, which we're going to see later on tonight. and I've always been an artist, and so that's how Star 6 Entertainment and Photography came about, is because I've always been an entertainer, and I didn't want people to judge me as just a photographer. When people label you as just having one skill and you very multi-talented, it really hurts you as an artist. And so for me to protect that, I said, okay, my company is going to be Star 6 Entertainment and Photography. Star 6, everything is rated as 5 stars as the best. And I've always been the next level, especially the way I think. And so Star 6 represents the, the promise of quality, the next level, And so being above the best is what Star 6 means, when 5 stars is the best. And that's what I've been standing for, and that's was the foundation of my photography career. And so I've always had this bar for myself, a high standard for everything I've studied, because the first thing I studied in the recipe started with being above the best. And so my first year, I became a celebrity photographer, being above the best in my art. And that surpassed everybody who had a 10-year career already. Because they like, well, how he do that? And it was my mindset. I changed the way that I thought, right? And so I ended up moving back to Ypsi because leaving Florida, it was getting a lot of violence, and I really wanted to preserve the way that I think for my people. I went to Florida as a purpose to transition into a better quality of skill of person for my community here. And so that's what I've always been taught. Go off to college, go off to another community and learn some skills and bring it back home and build your home, right? And so that's why I'm performing today with Booker T. Washington Holiday. I came home and I instantly said, well, how am I fit in my home? Everybody want to be a photographer. I'm more than that, right? I got all these other skills, and so I was top notch on studying the Bible. I was able to put precept upon precept, line upon line, and so I started really teaching people a better understanding of how to understand the Bible. And that built a crowd of my energy, how y'all probably perceive my energy right now. That built that crowd of people to witness that energy for the first time. And even though I don't still teach the Bible in that fashion, I teach it in a way that you can understand it in the way of your experiences. So if I say a scripture, it'll be a scripture that you will understand through the way that you have walked in life, not through the way I want you to think, right? And so I started to begin walking in a fashion of all these people talking about what should be done, and me having this recipe of success of the things that I would think that I would want to do. I've studied to become a walker into it. And so it was certain things that was in the community, especially for black people, that I wanted to stand up for. Instead of saying that I wanted to stand up for it, I stood up for it, right? And so if I wanted a program of arts for black people in Ypsilanti, I started an art program. And now it's called an art and talent show, where you can have art and your talent, musical, dance, to express yourself on a quality platform. I wanted to have an annual book signing and a place for people who have books and authors to be known. And so I started the book day, book reading and book signing event for book day. And then we don't have nobody to teach us in our family how to grow our own food. This is the most important thing in our life, is our diet and the way that we are transitioned with our health. And so as the results are coming into our communities about our health, we are lacking the teachers to teach us any thought to have a better health. And so I said, I'm not just going to talk about we need that. I'm going to become the person to teach my people how to heal themselves and grow their own food, which will control their diet and health. And so this recipe kept growing and growing and growing. And so I'm like, how am I going to fundraise all this community activities, right? And so this is when my other talents came in. I started to say, okay, I'm gonna go back into my photography career. This year is my 10-year anniversary. I started another art program. It's called the Black Arts of Ypsi. And now I'm about to build a unity of black artists and fashion designs, any kind of art that you win, into beautician, painter. We're going to collaborate all our arts, help each other promote, and do a lot of photo shoots and videos and make a big movement, right? This is what it all comes up to, is us coming together. And so most of the programs that I do is to empower black people, but my philosophy is that the more black people is empowered, the more the whole community is empowered, because black people is a part of the community and the whole community is already empowered. And so when you already have a group of people that's not being empowered, you have an energy that's going to come offset into that community that's not healthy. And me learning the recipe of health, I'm able to learn how to actually heal the whole community, with that recipe. And so Booker T. Washington holiday is April 5th every year, his birthday, and every weekend of April 5th, when the weekend falls, I do a whole festival weekend. And so I want to invite y'all out to that. It's Booker T. Washington holiday. And one thing about Booker T. Washington holiday, he was born as a slave. And he became one of the most consistent black men to teach education and to be a black leader, no matter what the circumstances was. He led in Mississippi, which lets you know that he sacrificed his life every single day, no matter what people tell you the story about Booker T. He most definitely influenced people, and one of the people that he influenced was Marcus Garvey to come to America. And that is one of the reasons why I chose Booker T. Washington as a holiday, is because he is the image of black empowerment. And so that's one of the reasons I also chose the Black Empowerment Awards as a theme of appreciating everybody who had this light to give back to the community and as well to empower black people. I'm Brother Noah.
Let's keep it going for Brother Noah, everybody. So when I started organizing this story slam, I decided I wanted to have some type of a theme, not to go real heavy-handed with it, but just as maybe a writing prompt. Because if you just say, hey, come tell a story, there's lots of possibilities. But if you tell somebody there's a theme, it doesn't have to be the main impact, but that's just a little way to get the creative juices flowing. So the theme I told people for this event was transportation, meaning any mode of travel, car, bus, bike, going back to Florida to recharge your batteries and revitalize. So keep an eye out for that theme as we welcome our next speaker. She is the founder of Revalue, which is a community investment company right here in Ypsi, just a few doors down. And they also run an event called Grub Stake, which is kind of makes a game out of learning about community investing. So here to tell our next story, please help me in welcoming to the stage, Angela Barbash, everyone. Thank you.
Heyo. Hello, old friends, new friends, friends I don't know yet. When I heard that the theme for tonight was transportation, a story popped right into my mind right away that I knew I wanted to tell tonight. It's a story of interdependence. So we moved here in Ypsilanti in 2001. I was about 20 years old, and I was working at an equipment company up in Novi. I was running the front desk, and my husband was the lead guitarist in a heavy metal band. And this was the first business that we really had. We ran that band like a business. I wasn't just a groupie. I wasn't. I ran merch. I did booking. It was a serious business for us. And it was Friday night. Well, not quite the night. It was Friday afternoon. And we had a show that night, as we did pretty much every Friday night when I was 20. And a torrential downpour starts in Metro Detroit. So bad that all the employees at the company I was working at decided that they either needed to leave at about 3:30 in the afternoon, which that was the time it was right now. They were like, either we go or we hunker down and we stay till like 7 and let it all blow over. And I was like, to hell with that. I'm not letting it blow over and hunkering down in Novi and missing the show, because we were dedicated. We were the kind of band and people entourage around a band that was local famous, and we were diehards. We were the people that would show up in the snowstorm in Detroit on the east side, and we'd be like the only band there, and there'd be like 3 people there to watch the band. It was us. So we weren't going to let a torrential downpour stop us from getting to this show tonight. So I was like, no, I'm leaving. I'm gonna go, and I'm gonna brave my way back to Ypsilanti to pack the cars with everyone, because that's what we need to do. And it's kind of ironic that in our gift bag, our speaker gift bag, we were given Hot Wheels cars, which we're big fans of in my house. And it's ironic that this one is red, because at the time I had a cherry red 1985 Dodge Daytona. Does anyone know what a Dodge Daytona is? You picture it? Okay, and second question, does anyone know what a California wink mirror is? No? Look at it, Google it, because we know we can Google everything. Google a wink mirror. So I had a wink mirror on this Dodge Daytona, and I was determined to get home. And I knew I had to take back roads to get home, all the way from Novi to Ypsilanti. And I remember hitting puddle after flood. They weren't puddles, they were floods. Hitting intersection after intersection, and my car would stall because a Daytona sits so low to the ground, you know? And it would stall, and I would jump out and push my car through the intersection like a boss. And then I got to this one intersection, and I couldn't really push it through. It was just too much traffic. The water was too high, and I was like, shit, I am stuck in God knows where, Metro Detroit, because I didn't really know the cities then, and I am not gonna make it home. And so I'm kind of sitting dejected at this intersection on the side of the road. My car's in the middle of the road. Trucks are going around it. Other people's cars are getting stalled. And who do I see but a friend of our entourage? His name is Jim Straw. And he had a dually truck, a big white dually truck. And I saw him, and he saw me. And it was you ever have that moment where you just run into a friend in the most unlikeliest of places, and it's like a godsend, and you're like, thank God you showed up. And so he helped push my car out, get it to the other side of the intersection, jumped my car so that I could get it juicing again, and I made it home. And we made it to the show. And every time I would run into Jim Straw after that, we would call him Straw. Every time I'd run into Straw after that, we weren't the greatest of friends, super tight, but we were, in the group together. He would always be like, oh, Angela, remember the car with the intersection? I'll never forget that. And that was our connection. And we haven't seen each other now for probably 8 or 10 years. But every time that we talk about mass transit around town, and I'm a big fan philosophically of mass transit. Like, I'm down. Let's get trains and more buses. Let's do it. But every time we talk about it, I think about how we often come from a position of thinking about being in our cars and being super independent in our cars, and it's inefficient. But when I think about being in my car, I think about dependency and interdependency, and how when we're in our cars, we get stranded and we get stuck and we need help. And it's a reason for us to reach across to help each other out. But when we're in a train, and I've been in the city and on the coast, and I've lived the train life, and And that connection often doesn't happen. There isn't as much as of an interdependence. And I think that's something that we would really miss if we all abandoned our cars. Although I think the environment would probably like us better for it, right? So I mean, I'm still going to stick to the philosophy of let's go trains and buses, but or bicycles. But it's something I do think about. And so, one last thing to say before I turn it over to the next speaker, and that's to Jim Straw. If you're watching this, I gotcha. If you need help, I gotcha. Thank you.
You know, I like how Angela's story started with moving to Michigan, because I have a car story. When I first moved to Michigan from Pennsylvania, one of my first experiences driving in this part of the world was I was driving down the highway or the road, and all of a sudden I saw people pulling off the road, pulling onto the median, and they were jumping out of their cars. They were looking up at the sky. They were pointing. And I was like, is it the apocalypse? Is there a comet? And I pulled over and I got out of my car and I looked up and there were these jets flying overhead, and that's how I found out about the Yankee Air Show, which is a bit alarming. Our next speaker probably doesn't want me to tell you that he's a professor of neuroscience at Eastern, and I suspect that his story might be a little on the lowbrow side, even though he's a super smart guy. He is pretty funny. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome to the stage Dr. Thomas Mast.
Hello. I don't like wearing hats indoors, but it's weird to just set your hat down in a bar. Also, Misha is a terrible liar. I need to tell you, I don't have a PhD. It's a fraud. So, I went to Eastern in the 90s. I lived on Perrin Street, and I worked jobs, and I was in study groups and that sort of thing. And undergrads then, like now, tended to kind of take off on the weekend. We would do road trips, because if you're not drinking in a bar, there isn't much for undergrads to do in Ypsi. There's only so many house parties you can go to. So we used to road trip a lot, and I ended up road tripping a lot by myself. And at the time, I guess I found that weird. My friends found that weird. And looking back on it, it's because at that time I had relatively unregulated like depression and anxiety. I would get to the weekend, and I had been in like classrooms all day, I had been at work all day dealing with people, and I just couldn't stand to look another human in the face again. I just didn't want to be around you. And, you know, like, I would go to these house parties, and I'd be with all my friends. You know, I went to Eastern with my best friend from high school, a dude I've known since I was 10. And I just, God, if I had to look at Ben again, if I had to say another word to him, and I just wouldn't be, I would feel so lonely. You know, I would, you know, you'd be in a room full of everybody, and I'd just be exhausted and lonely, you know, and I would just, you know, surrounded by other humans. And so sometimes I would just road trip by myself. Sometimes I would just, you know, that we now charitably call the Irish goodbye. You know, you slip out the back door, you don't say goodbye to anybody, you get out of Dodge. And I would just go hide in my apartment. I would read or do other things that weren't kind to my body. And so, but sometimes that wouldn't be enough, just hiding in my apartment, just being in town and hearing the house parties and people like coming by, like, hey, we're going over to Chips. Like, I don't want to go to fucking Chips. I just don't want to look at you. So I would road trip by myself. I would just get in my car and go. And so one weekend is Thursday night. People are trying to go out to parties and like, oh, we're going to, you know, have all these great parties. It's going to be a blast. I'm like, no, it isn't. So I made this plan to go. I didn't have to work that Friday. You know, weren't really classes on Friday. And I got in so this is 1998, I got in my 1987 Honda CRX, and I headed north. And at that time, I read a lot because it's part of my hiding strategy, and I watched a lot of movies. And I had recently seen the movie A River Runs Through It. If you guys remember this movie, it's a fly fishing movie. Brad Pitt is like the coolest guy in the world, who also has massive depression and drinking problems. So he was like my man beast that I wish I was. And I had read some Hemingway, and I knew Hemingway went fishing, and I was like, I'm going to do that. I can do that. So I left my door, and so I had found out that Hemingway did all of his fly in Michigan on the Fox River, somewhere around Newberry in the UP. So I left my house with my 90-year-old fishing tip and about nothing else. I grabbed a tent, a sleeping bag, and a 1987 Honda CRX, and I just started driving. I had a map. There's no cell phones, and I'm pushing my little car as fast as I can go, and I take 23 the whole way because I'm adventuresome, like I'm a rugged man. And so it takes me like 7 hours to get to the bridge, and I've never even seen the bridge. I don't know where it is. I hoped there were signs, and I had a map, so I'd pull over occasionally because it's really damn far. And when you're just in pine trees for that long enough, you're like, I'm on this road, but why does it seem to keep going? Like, shouldn't it get to a place? Don't roads go to locations? So I finally get to the bridge, and I'm surprised to find I had to pay to cross it because I just kind of left my house with my 80-year-old fishing tip and no fishing gear. By the way, so I pay to cross the bridge, and I figure out, and it's really nice. I don't know if you ever cross a bridge. It's cool. It's fantastic, actually. And I head east, and you go across, I think that's 2 or something. And, there's all the little ravines, and I'm pulling over, and like, oh, that's so pretty up here. No wonder we cut down all the trees and ruined it. It makes so much sense. And so I'm just driving around, looking at stuff, and I kind of find where the Fox River is on a map, and I just start heading to places, and I'm like, well, now it's 2 in the afternoon. I should probably try and get fishing gear. And so the whole point of this thing was to be alone, but now I had to go talk to people on how to find fishing gear because it's not like I can Google it. And so I ended up going to I went to freaking garage sales. I found a garage sale in the UP. How does that happen? And I went to a couple different fishing shops, and I fished as a kid. I just took a hat off indoors because I thought it was impolite. I came from that type of place. And I like fishing poles, you can get them at the gas station. I get myself a little Iowa, it's gonna be great. $20? No. Well, fly fishing, it turns out, is only for wealthy people. And the fishing line was $20. So I spend $20 on fishing line and a lure, and I can't afford a pole, but I'm I'll use a stick. I'll just hold on to the line and I'll flick it. I've snapped lots of people with towels. I can flick it. So I drive and I buy some sterno and I buy some cornmeal because like Hemingway, I'm going to make corn cakes with trout because I'm a real man. I'd also like to point out this time, it's 1998, so I'm 20. And for those of you, is anybody here a 20-year-old male? Anybody? Okay, is anybody here used to be a 20-year-old male? Okay, how stupid were you? The beauty of being a 20-year-old male is you don't know how stupid you are. You're mwah, chef's kiss of idiocy. That's me, okay? And so I honestly think that this man, I've never even seen a fly fishing pole in person. I've never done it. I've watched Brad Pitt do it. I clearly don't need to buy calories because I'm going to harvest them from the Fox River like Hemingway. It didn't work. I ended up just pulling over on the side of the road and just camping. I just literally found tracks and just drove into the woods. And I set up a fire and I tried to fish. It didn't work. I slept and went for hikes. I'm wearing steel-toed boots and jeans and a Henley. That's all I got. And so I fly fish for a couple hours. I take some walks and I'm oh man, I'm just squatting. What if some hick is this is his spot or something? I don't want to talk to my friends I don't want to talk to you, buddy. Like, anybody comes down in their dually, it's probably not going to go well. Like some little city boy in his little Honda two-wheeler, like, get out of here. So I'm paranoid. I pack everything up, and I just drive around, and I find a new spot that I think is even more secluded. And I remember this spot really well because I really like marsh, and I was super happy because I got to like drive through the edge of this marsh and camp on it. It was really pretty. It's still in the Fox River. And I decided, since casting wasn't working, I would fish like the way I would back home with a bobber, except keep in mind, I didn't bring anything, and I didn't plan on fishing with a bobber. The sustenance I did bring with me was a Mountain Dew. It was a 2-liter Mountain Dew. So I finished my 2-liter Mountain Dew. I wrapped it around a fly fishing string, and I threw it into the river like a giant bobber and tied the other end to a stick. And I sat. And the damn 2-liter shook around because it's in a river. It's going to shake around. It's not a pond behind Farmer Brown's barn. So I didn't catch anything. And at that point, so I go back to my campsite, and I think I have like a Snickers left. And I'm now pretty freaking hungry. And I think I'm in this sweetly secluded spot, and I look across the marsh, and it's a freaking county highway. There's just cars going up. I'm basically now literally camped next to the road. I'm like, I've got to get out of here. This is a bust. So I throw everything in. I'm just dirty, right? I've just been like tramping through woods. I just roll everything, throw it in the back of the CRX, and I drive to the bridge. And luckily, probably the most successful portion of the story is I did get some smoked whitefish along the way. And if you haven't been to the UP, get the smoked whitefish. It's delicious. So I did get to eat, so that was nice. And then I'm about to get on the bridge, and I know I need like $1.50, $2, I don't know, because I can't remember, because I'm an idiot. And I look down to get my change to pay to get on the bridge, and I'm like, not on red, I'm like on the other side of the stem of E. And I'm like, how the hell how's this car even moving? Like, I don't know how so I pop the clutch, and I coast into St. Ignace, and I don't remember, so I have to like save some of this money to go over the bridge, so I got like $4 in the car, which in 1998 was like, 3.5 gallons. I'm like, okay, so I go across, so I have enough money, and I go across the bridge, now I've got like 50 cents to my name, and like 4 gallons, and it's getting dark. I had no smokes or sunglasses, so I wasn't even at the Blues Brothers level yet. And so I just ride. I do the thing where I like go uphill and I throw it into fifth as soon as I can, and as I go downhill, I pop into neutral, and I just coast. I'm going like 50 miles per hour from the bridge till I run out of gas, because that's literally my only plan. It's 1998. I don't have a cell phone. There aren't like TGI Fridays at every third exit. I don't have anything to do. I don't have a plan because I'm stupid. So this part I remember. I made it to Frankenmuth, and I ran out of gas as I pulled in to the gas station. And I still am. I'm a little paranoid about getting stuck on the side of the road, so I always have a bin of stuff. I've got gloves. I've got like extra scrapers, motor oil, power fluid, all that crap. I always have all of it. So I pull all this stuff, I pull all my tent out. Luckily, I have a can of dry gas. You guys remember dry gas? So I got like 12 ounces of like octane. And I just pull literally everything out of this little tiny car to where like I'm pulling up like the pennies that have corroded against the nuts underneath the seat. And I've got my 50 cents, and I found like 87 cents with all this stuff. And I go up to the lady, and I give her like $1.19, and I get like a gallon. And so now I have like a gallon in the car. Maybe it must have been a little bit more, because I somehow made it home to Frankenmuth. And I get to my house, and I'm like, oh, I can't believe I didn't run out of gas. This is great. It's now like 1 a.m, and I've arrived back on Parent Avenue in the midst of all the house parties. It's like the most bumpin' night of the year. I'm like, I'm like, all right, I'm going to go in my apartment and hide. And I go up this side, it's a house that's been cut into apartments, and I'm the top apartment. And I go up the side stairs, and I don't have my house key. I'm like, oh, because I like to point out I didn't plan this at all. Like, I'm dumb. And so I'm like, well, I know what I'll do. I'll go in the back, and I will break in. And, it's one of those things where, like, at some point in time, somebody put, like, a shed lean-to in the back of the house, so, like, for, like, a mud room, and that's now, like, my downstairs neighbor's bedroom. And behind that is, like, an old clothesline. So what I do is I empty my garbage can. So I just start rooting through garbage now. So I'm wearing steel-toed boots, dirty jeans, a dirty Henley. It's 1 a.m, and I'm rooting through garbage because I want to empty that garbage can, get on it, get on top of the clothesline, and I'm going to jump like Stallone in Cliffhanger and get onto that house. That's what I'm going to do. It takes me about 3 jumps. And there's just, houses are just full of like my peers hanging out in their backyards because it's like the spring. And eventually I'm now standing on the roof and I'm looking over in the backyard of the people next to me, and there's just like 10 undergrads staring at me. And I've just been rooting through the garbage. And now the best part is that I now have to talk to the exact people I did not want to talk to, because they're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, wait, we're going to call the cops. I'm like, no, this is my apartment. I now have to talk to strangers at a party about how I'm not breaking into my own house. So this whole freaking charade was a failure. Just an absolute failure, except for maybe the whitefish. The whitefish, I think, maybe made it worth it. And that's my story.
Let's hear it for Tom Mast. He is educating the next generation of neuroscientists and doctors, so that'll be good. Our next speaker, I've known for quite a long time. She's crazy multi-talented. She is a professional tailor. She has a degree in jewelry making. She's done quite a bit of burlesque entertainment. If you're familiar with burlesque in the old days of Ann Arbor, she's an alumnus of the Tickled Fancy Burlesque Company. And the moment I met her, the night I met her, it was after dark, and she lived on the same block as I did. I think it was up on Summit Street. And she knocked on the door, and I didn't know her. She said, hey, I live next door, and I need some help from you guys, because I had a couple of roommates. And she said, my neighbor jacked my bike, and I need you to help me like sneak into his backyard and get it back. So we're like, okay, whatever. We go sneak in the backyard in the dark, and we find her bike. We help her carry it to her house. We stick it in the mudroom in the back of her house. Okay? Didn't think anything of it. We go to bed. Next morning, there's this pounding on the door, and we go to the front door, and it's her, and she says, I need your help again. And we say, what is it? She said, well, I got up this morning and I went to check on my bike, and that's not my bike. So let's hear it for the accidental bike thief, Regina Sweet. Come on down.
Hi, everybody. So, I'm gonna read you a poem, but I need to put the rest of my costume on. So, just a minute. Oh, this is not This is just the costume I came up with to be a poet today. Do not call Mercy Christian Health on Packard, no.
Okay.
All right, I don't need you. Oh, shit. Okay, here we go. This is my poem, because I didn't have a story. Pain as a place. Pain is a place. It changes as I push through it. Trees grow and break, ground from deep inside. I trip on their roots, leaves falling in my face all around. Small scurrying creatures chase thoughts. They eat them before they come to me, even. There's a whole continent of stinging things. Pits of bees and snakes in brush. There's a river there too. The ants take little leaf boats along. It opens into an ocean. Boats on fire pepper a red horizon. I don't step in, I stay at the edge. The landscape changes. It changes me. It brings me into my body, where it wasn't before, or at least I'd lost the map. I can't remember. I wonder when the mountain will be under me. It's still looming above. Okay, that's my poem. Misha asked me to do this like 2 days ago, and I really honestly could not think of anything. And then I called him like an hour ago, and I was like, dude, I really can't think of anything. So then I asked my partner to help me come up with an idea, and I just kept getting more and more frustrated. So I was like, oh, fuck it, I'll just write a fake story. And I opened my notes on my phone, and then there was this poem that I wrote in my sleep. I just woke up in the middle of the night and just wrote this really weird, creepy poem and went back to sleep. And then that's my story. Thanks, everybody.
So I think we can all agree that Regina wins the award for out-of-the-box thinking. I also love how she brought a costume to wear. We've done a lot of costumes together over the years. I used to be a professional clown. Some of you may know this about me. I also did a lot of character work, like I would dress like the Cat in the Hat or a pirate or whatever and go to kids' parties. So I have been pulled over in costume a lot. I got pulled over right here on Michigan Ave. I think I pulled up onto Adams. I got pulled over dressed as the Cat in the Hat. And the officer comes up to the window. This is always what happens when you're in costume. Why are you dressed as Cat in the Hat? And I have to explain, this is my job. I go to kids' parties or whatever. I got pulled over. I was a clown, full clown, of course. Why are you dressed as a clown? If you're in a clown suit, they do not believe you that it's your job. They want to check your trunk for bodies and that sort of thing. I got pulled over as a pirate one time, and I was very tempted, since I was dressed as a pirate, I was very tempted when the officer approached to say, I swear I didn't steal this car, but as we all know, cops on duty do not like to joke around with people, so I bit my tongue on that one. The best one, though, and if you have choice of which costume to get pulled over in, I'll tell you, it's Santa Claus. Everybody loves Santa. I didn't even get the question, why are you dressed as Santa? He just came up to the window, and I knew I was speeding. I said, I know I was speeding. I'm sorry. I'm going to a gig. And he said, hey, don't worry about it. I need you to slow down, but I'm not going to give you a ticket, because if I give you a ticket, you're going to be grumpy, and the kids do not deserve a grumpy Santa. So, wasn't that sweet? And so if you have choice of which costume to get pulled over, and I do recommend Santa Claus. And our next speaker I will introduce is a creative consultant. She's the founder of Wi-Fi, which is an arts organization for Ypsi youth. Please welcome to the stage Yen Azaro.
Hello. For most of my life, I've had a hard time answering the question, where are you from? Or my favorite, what are you? I was born in Taipei, Taiwan, where my mother is from, and my father was from Malaysia. and they immigrated to the United States in 1970 via New York City, and we've come to this expansive country, and we are making our way to a town called Tecumseh, Michigan. And in Tecumseh, Michigan, we're going to live with my aunt and uncle and my apo, who is my grandmother, and all apo did was sit on the couch and watch soaps. So it was Young and the Restless, As the World Turns, and she spoke no English and understood no English, and it didn't matter because drama is universal. So that's how I learned to speak English. And shortly after going to Tecumseh, we moved to Buena Park, California, very close to Disneyland. And my parents ran the Gaslight Motel, sandwiched between a medieval times horse arena, which is still there, I just looked it up the other day, where the horses had their manes and tails braided. And on the other side was a wax museum. And I have this really distinct memory of holding my dad's neck as he walked over the bridge, and my eyes were shut tight because I was so petrified of the King Kong exhibit. And it was just this swirling hot lava and steam around me, and I couldn't deal with it. My parents worked really hard. I remember we would walk in the sweltering heat on the sandstone sidewalk. It was glistening, and we would get groceries. Sometimes we'd have to put some of the groceries back, and we would take a taxi cab home. And eventually my parents were able to buy a Nissan Datsun hatchback, and we would use that. One time my mom took me to the kiddie pool because she worked so much. I never got to use the pool at the motel that they ran. And I get there and I'm so excited, and it's like a circular pool and it's my height, and somebody had pooped in it. You know, like, why at a motel, really? So there's a picture of me somewhere, just like scowling in front of this giant neon Gaslight Motel sign in floaties. Shortly after that, we moved to Orlando, Florida. When we moved to Orlando, my parents packed up the Datsun hatchback and put the seats down, and the suitcases just piled up real high, and my mom drove that car, and I sat in the wedge between her car, her seat, and the back seat, the width of a pillow, from California to Florida. And my dad drove the U-Haul, so I was like 3.5. And now when we talk about it, my mom's like, ayo, we so stupid put you like that. And I'm like, yeah, you were really stupid driving cross country like that. So we get to Orlando, and now my parents are running Best Western Hotel, which is next to Disney World. And here I really love the apartment because it's 2 hotel rooms, mirror images with too many bathrooms, kitchen in the middle, and I'm really loving kindergarten. I went to a private Catholic school with a blue jumper, and I have vivid memories of watching a rocket launch from Cape Canaveral. I remember a kid and his dad bringing their pet wolf on a rope leash to school. And I remember playing Jesus in the Christmas pageant because I could read and memorize lines, and I wore a multicolored tiger towel toga. So shortly after this, I made the mistake of asking my parents for a sibling, so my sister was born. And I remember going into first grade and just loving Ms. Borsowitz. Ms. Borsowitz is my hero. We're Facebook friends now, and we still exchange Christmas cards. And she was my mentor, my hero, like my everything. She was the one that was there the day that I climbed up the metal slide backwards and went to reach for the bar and slammed my face so hard at the top and bust open my lip and knocked out my 2 front teeth. And she held me while they called my mother. So I was devastated when we moved from Orlando before first grade ended, and we were going back to Tecumseh where I knew nobody, and we were one of 2 Asian families again. And we started second grade, and I met my friend April. And April had perfectly coordinated outfits, and she had coiffed ringlets, and I had a really bad, smelly Taiwanese perm, like the kind that went out and just looked like a constant crimp that you couldn't get rid of. And I had giant square glasses that always slid down my flat nose, and none of that mattered to April. When I went to April's house, she had all the games that were on the commercials that I had ever seen, like Mousetrap or Operation or Clue. I didn't have any of those. Her dad was a cop, and her mom smelled like Italian food. And whenever I went over there, she always sat and talked to us and asked us, "How was your school day?" And I was like, "Why are you just asking me that every single time I come over, right?" When we moved to New Orleans, April and I vowed to be the most loyal pen pals. So we moved to New Orleans, and I don't remember the name of that school, because when we pulled up to that motel, that apartment, which was really just a glorified corner unit with no kitchen, my parents opened the door, and mouse after mouse ran out. And every time they crossed the staircase, down the stairs, through the parking lot, into the night, I squealed louder than each one did, and I refused to go in for the longest time. So where I was just loving Miss Borsowitz in Orlando, I was always getting in trouble with the nuns at my Catholic school in New Orleans. And it was this damn kid, Clifford, who wouldn't shut up, and the nuns would hiss at us and hit the rulers against the desk, and I would try to protest, and they wouldn't let me. And the only thing I looked forward to was Friday pizza, but that also meant Friday Mass. And to a 7-year-old, you're thinking, this is going to last an eternity, but it was probably just a couple hours. One day I got in the car, and my mom was picking me up, and I had just buckled my seatbelt, and a kid darted out in front of her. And I still remember the feeling of the car lurching and the light thud it made. And my mom got out of the car, and I don't know how long we were there, but I remember unbuckling my seatbelt and climbing over the back of the hatchback seat and just laying really flat in the trunk and just wanting to disappear through the floor. And he was okay, but my mom got back in the car, and we never talked about it, and we still haven't. And shortly after that, we moved to Pasadena. So this time I got to sit upright in the car, and I sat next to my sister, and I remember being in the car right across from my dad and kind of smiling and waving while he's driving the U-Haul. And when the light turned green, we were in the desert, and he veered off the entrance ramp onto the highway, and we went straight. And I just had this feeling of like, oh my gosh, I'm never gonna see my papa ever again. And all these feelings overwhelmed me, and they welled up in my chest, and I just remember exploding, you know, as a 7-year-old kid, and not understanding what was happening and why we were going again. And it was one of the few times my mother consoled me. So after some frenzied phone calls back and forth to Tecumseh, my parents found each other on the highway, and we made our way to Pasadena. And in Pasadena, we had a really cool ranch house, and it seemed like it was at the bottom of the mountains. And I just used to hang out with these kids down the street. They were Asian. I don't know if they were my cousins or friends or whatever. I don't even know what my parents did for work then. But I just remember we would play hide and seek, and I remember one time we had these foam guns, and I went around to like get the kid in the face, and when I shot him, he's like, "You shot out my loose tooth." And then I swallowed it. And, you know, we were just rolling around in laughter. And I don't have many memories of Pasadena other than that and like burning ants really easily on the sidewalk. I remember that we never replaced the box that we used for a dining room table because we didn't stay there very long. And eventually, we were going back to Tecumseh again. So going back to Tecumseh, that was our 7th move in 5 years. We would move again to Ann Arbor a few years later, and then we would move a whole bunch of times, but I would go to middle school and high school in Ann Arbor. By then, my dad had left Malaysia 39 years before. My mom still goes back and forth between Taiwan and here, but she says no place truly feels like home. And my parents have been divorced for 27 years now. So today, I live about 10 minutes walking from this spot. We have a toboggan that my husband took and turned upside down, and he put it on stilts in our backyard, and we stand at it and drink and call it our toboggan. And my son has a little hole that he's dug under the maple tree, and we fill it with water, and he makes mud, and he has little markers where he has little gravestones for dead bugs that he's found. We play tomato ball, which is like inspired by Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, where he stands on the porch and we throw a ball at him and he throws it back at us and we try to dodge it, or he tries to get hit. There's really no rules. But, the ball can like float over our heads into the street, and it's so quiet and it's great, except for the EMU marching band, which is fantastic for a band geek like me. And we'll go to the Tridge and we'll throw rocks in there. We'll take the wagon down to Dairy Queen on Michigan Ave. And sometimes if I have a free weekend, I can call April and I can bring my kid to Grand Rapids, or she can bring her kids and spend the weekend with us. So for a long time, when people asked me where I was from or what I was, I didn't know how to answer. But now I can say I'm from Ypsilanti, Michigan. And more times than not, people know where that is.
Thank you, Yana Zara. That was great. Ich bin ein Ypsilantian as well. When I say Ypsilantian, I mean Ypsilanti City, Ypsilanti Township, and even maybe just outside the city limits in Superior Township, because we're inclusive here. Our next speaker is in just such a condition where he just lives on the north side of the Huron River in Superior Township, but you could throw a pebble from his backyard and hit the Peninsular Paper Dam, so I think he counts. He is a school teacher in Ann Arbor, and he spends a lot of time in Ypsi. He has family connections here as well. But before we get to our next speaker, I know I talked to you all up and you're ready to jump up, but before we get to him, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping. Concentrate Media is a solutions-oriented journalism outlet online. You can find the website at secondwavemedia.com/concentrate. We also run a embedded reporting program in Ypsi and Ypsi Township called On the Ground Ypsilanti. Over on the shelf where we got the snacks and the water bottles, there's a postcard that talks about On the Ground Ypsi. If you want any more information, please feel free to grab one of these postcards. There's a way that you can contact us to suggest story ideas. We do focus on solutions-oriented journalism, which is focusing on individuals, businesses, and organizations that create solutions, that innovate, and that are creating what's next for our region. Also, I do want to thank our sponsors. Concentrate is a sponsored venture. We are sponsored by Ann Arbor Spark, and the Spark East location is right across the street. You can see it through the window here. Destination Ann Arbor and Ypsi Real. Ann Arbor and Ypsi Chamber, A2Y Chamber, they call it for short. Ypsilanti District Library, Ypsilanti Township, Toyota Motor North America, Washtenaw County Administration, Washtenaw County Parks, that's two different funders, thanks Washtenaw County, United Way of Washtenaw County, as well as EMU and WEMU. Let's get a big round of applause for all of our sponsors. They're making this event possible. And then making it possible for us to report on all the good news that's happening around the area. One other thing, I have these little surveys here. I would like it if everyone gets a chance before you leave, pick up one of these surveys, fill it out. You can, if you fill it out here, you can put it in the box on the stool over there, or if you want to just like email me your answers, that's fine too. But please do give us a little bit of feedback about that, because that's how we keep improving our events. I also do have a few drink tickets left. If there's anybody who's come who did not get a drink ticket, be honest, no 2-for-1s. But if you didn't get a drink ticket, do please see me for that. And I will now introduce our next speaker. I actually gave the introduction already, didn't I? That was a little weird. But let's welcome to the stage, Brandon Groff.
All right, so the story comes from, I actually started to think about when it comes from, and I think it's like 20 years ago now, which seems like yesterday. And my buddy Joe and I decided we're gonna go on a mountain bike ride. Awesome, we're cyclists. We dabble in mountain biking. So we decided we're gonna go mountain biking. Great, pick up Joe, we've got the bike's up on the roof rack of my Buick LeSabre. It's beautiful, right? It's a sky blue 1996 Buick LeSabre. If you don't know what that looks like, think about what your favorite aunt was driving in the late 90s. Like, that's the Buick LeSabre. So it's got this giant roof rack on it. I mean, I can fit like 5 bikes up there. And you take the front wheels off and like load them in and strap them down and everything. And then there's a wheel rack as well. And so Joe and I go off and we're riding. Oh man, shredding the nard. This is so cool. High five. We get back to the parking lot. And my trunk has been jimmied, and we had everything that we had brought and stored during our mountain bike ride in that trunk. So we say, maybe they got scared off. Oh shit, everything's gone. There's a pair of khakis that I would keep in there for a spare, just in case. I actually don't know why I kept them in there. It seemed like a good idea, like, oh, it's winter, pack a spare pair of boots, you might get stranded. So I was like, I don't know, I'm in grad school, I'll pack a spare pair of khakis. So they've been in there so long, they're stained and just wrinkly, and they smell like mildew. And I said, well, I think I'm gonna wear this home, Joe. And Joe's like, all I've got is my boxers. I said, man, no big deal. Let's change. So we changed, and we decided to call the cops. We should probably report this, right? Yeah, of course we should. Our cell phones are gone. It was the early days of cell phones. We were even concerned about getting charged, for long distance or whatever the deal was back then. We have no wallets, no form of ID. Everything was taken, including my girlfriend's favorite pair of pajama boxers that I had borrowed because I hadn't done laundry and I didn't have any clean underwear, and I just kind of yanked them. And she's now my wife, and I think she's forgiven me at this point for that. So we the park ranger shows up, and we give him the rundown. I don't know, expecting him to be like, we found the guy, we're gonna get your stuff. And it's the park ranger, which I found out is like a branch of the state patrol or something. And he's just like, bummer dude. And Joe and I we're crestfallen. All of our stuff had just been taken. We've been violated. And so then this hippie state patrolman, which I guess if you want part of the state patrol to be like a park ranger, you probably want the hippie version. So he's goes have a good one. And we don't know what to do. So we put our bikes back up on the rack. I put mine on the rack. Joe puts his on the rack. We get in. I said, I don't even have shoes, dude. I think it's against the law to drive without shoes. So I put back on my mountain bike shoes, which are weird. Cycling shoes are just kind of weird in general, and they have a hard sole. And off we go. Bummer dude. Yeah, bummer dude. And we get onto the interstate, about a half mile down the interstate. What was that? I'm looking in my rearview mirror, and I see a mountain bike wheel bouncing down the interstate. It's Joe's mountain bike wheel. It's rolling and bouncing at about 65 miles an hour. It's about rush hour. There's steady traffic building. And I see this black souped up coupe coming fast. And I'm like, oh boy. And he veers to the right. He overcorrects, goes off towards the median wall. It looks as if he's gonna hit the median wall head on. And Joe at this point is looking, because I'm yelling, oh shit! And Joe's looking, and this guy, right before he hits the median head on, drifts his rear end around like Fast and Furious style, and just kisses the median wall, comes to a stop in the shoulder next to the median wall, and rush hour is happening. giant semis. Like, I don't know how he got across 3 lanes of traffic without getting plowed by a semi. Joe and I look at each other, just dumbstruck. That was awesome. So then I'm still looking in my rearview mirror, and the bike wheel is going down the interstate. A little slower now, not bouncing. And cars are actually coming up upon it and are signaling, checking their blind spots, moving, going around the wheel, right turn signal, back into the lane. And I say, hey, people see that there's a bike wheel. I unbuckle, start to get out of the car, and Joe's like, where you going, man? Gonna get the bike wheel. Like, man, I ran junior high track. I'm fast. I can get that wheel. It's in the right lane. We're on the right shoulder. So I get out of the car, right? And I go around, and I'm ready for it. Here we go. I'm timing it. And I'm about to launch. The bike wheel wobbles, and it comes right to my feet. Pick it up. I show Joe. We both laugh. Share a laugh right in that moment. Isn't that cool? So I proudly walk back to the car, throw it in the back seat, get back in, like, okay, now Joe's like, all right, dude, let's go. Joe, we were just part of an accident in which a dude almost died. Yep, we got the wheel too. Everybody else is gone. Let's go. I think fleeing the scene's a felony. No one knows. Let's go. I'm the driver. We're staying. Cop shows up, pulls over to the let's call it a late 90s Civic. You know, body kit and everything, right? So the dude's turned around because he almost killed himself but just kissed the median wall. And the cop helps him get turned around across 3 lanes of traffic, pulls up sort of right behind us, and he comes around, and he, hey fellas, right, because remember, Joe is in nothing but a pair of boxer shorts. We're dirty, sweaty, smelly. I'm in like baggy, gross khakis that I may have needed at some point in grad school. And he just like pulls himself back together and says, license and registration, proof of insurance. Look at Joe. Well, sir, I've got a story to tell you. And I tell him the story of we just got robbed, and like you can probably pull the police report. It's probably filed already. God, I hope it is. And I'm right, no, sure, dude, do I smell? Joe smells worse. And see, poor Joe. So the cop says, I understand. Brandon, would you come back to the cruiser with me? Oh, boy. Okay, so out I go. Of course, I'm going to go back to the cruiser. It opens the door. I get in, and if anyone has never had the pleasure of riding in the back seat of a police cruiser, they're really uncomfortable. So luckily I have really short legs, but it's still uncomfortable. And I'm also like that like slimy, clammy, gross, oily feeling that you get like when you've just been working out or doing some yard work or just sweating a lot, and then you cool off, but then you like something happens and you get really, really sweaty again and nervous or anxious, whatever. And like that's me in the moment. So I'm on this like hard, sticky seat that like I'm not sure what's also been back there, and I am a little worried at this point because I don't have my license. And he's like, so tell me about everything, what happened? And I give him the rundown. And I'm like, and it was Joe's wheel. It wasn't my wheel. And he's like, unfortunately, you're the driver, sir. I understand. So then he says, well, I'm going to have to cite you for dropping a load. And I I almost burst out laughing because this dude just used a euphemism for taking a shit, right? And like, I'm in a headspace that's all of a sudden just like this new level of fantasy world that I'm in on this day. And so I feign a disappointment and I say, I understand, sir, but like I picked up the load that I dumped and he said, yeah, I understand that you might be mad, but think about how mad that other guy is gonna be when I cite him for reckless op, which in case you didn't know is 6 points off your license and a 90-day license suspension, I believe. And I almost laughed again, and I said, I understand, sir. And he said, you're going to have to take care of this in environmental court. So I said, yes, sir. So I go down to environmental, he lets me out, I go back to the car, Joe and I go on our way. I don't really say anything about it, like, Gay gave me a ticket, that's that. I go to environmental court. In environmental court, I was the only one wearing a shirt and tie that day. And my fellow citizens that were in court that day had been in trouble for like throwing mattresses in the woods and their dogs biting people and I don't know what else, but I was the only one that looked like I was taking this seriously. So the assistant prosecutor stands us all up in a line and says, gentlemen, because we were all dudes, and she says, you have options in your pleas today. You can plead guilty, you can plead not guilty, you can plead no contest. She runs us down all the different things. I felt very good about the situation. Oh, this is pretty fair. They sort of read us our rights, and it seems good. So she gets to me, Mr. Groff, you're charged with dumping a load. How do you plead? I almost start giggling again. I'm like, man, every day. So I say, ma'am, does it matter if I cleaned up the load that I had dumped? And she looked up from her papers with a kind of a wry smile. She was really fighting it. And I said, and she says, sir, it's the fact that you took the dump in the first place. No contest, ma'am. So that is how I have crimes against the environment. It's a minor misdemeanor, and I think that my record is expunged at this point in my life. Thank you.
Let's hear for Brandon Groff and his crimes against the environment. All right, next up, our next speaker is also going to be one of the musical acts later on. After the storytelling, we will have rapper Lucy Luya performing a set, and after that, it will get weirder as we do some spoken word, some ambient, and some jazz percussion improvisation. Even DJ Trash Pedal is here. We got a lot of weird stuff, so please feel free to make a night of it. Our next speaker is Thomas Dunn. Please welcome him to the stage.
So I had nothing prepared before, like 3 seconds before getting on stage. Let me think about something. My story starts about 4 years ago. It's weird. I was walking while visiting my brother, Michael, on Olive, and I think it was something weird about that day. The sun was shining through trees and stuff, and I was like, damn, Ypsi looks fucking wonderful. Like, it was like that, like, I was walking through the street, I was like yelling at people were yelling at me. I was like, have a good day. They're like, thank you, you too. And I was like, something was like great about that. I was on my way to Fast Eddie's, like next door probably, to buy a guitar that I really didn't need at that time. And I was walking back and someone asked me to play my guitar for them. And it was kind of weird. It's like, it's electric. It's like, you can't even hear it. I can't hear it. I'm playing it. You can't hear it. It's like weird, but it's fine. I go, like, all right, jump forward 2 years. I started EMU here. Had a weird time. Fell in love with the city again. So the thing that I keep remembering is that like I keep falling in love with this place. I keep falling in love with the people, like the energy. Like I drove here like on like this leaning car with everything that I own pretty much. I won't tell you the type of car it is, but everything I own to like play the show today. And I keep like wondering, I keep remembering that like I keep loving this place and keep falling in love with this place and the people that are here, the people that like come out to shows, the people that tell their stories, and like especially the people that tell you their stories as complete strangers. So I want to say like one, thank you for like letting me be here and get weird like in a few minutes, but also like thank you for coming. Like this is wonderful. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to hear your stories, and that's all I got. Thank you so much.
That was beautiful because it points out that a lot of times life in Ypsi is beautiful and the sun's just shining and you're just feeling happy. It also points out that transportation does not have to be a car, a bike, a bus, a plane. It can be your own 2 feet. So thanks for that, Thomas. Our next speaker is the founder of Black Men Read. One of the things that they do is they have story times where Black men read storybooks to kids from African-American authors and also highlighting African-American contributions to our shared history and culture. I'm super honored that she's here. She spoke at the storytelling event Concentrated in December, and she's back to regale us again. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Yodit Mesfin Johnson.
What's up, Ypsi? What's up, Ypsi? I'm from Detroit. We say, what up, though? I'm not from Detroit anymore. I've been in Ypsi long enough, and I love it here. How many parents are here? Okay, you know we're about to enter hell on Tuesday, right? How many of y'all drive your kids to school? Yeah. It's great, right? So fucking excited to do that again. Bartender, have my drink ready. I wanted to be sober for this, but so most mornings during the school year, my son and I pile into the car, bags, bagels, stiff black coffee for me. We drive about 25 minutes to the south side of Ann Arbor from Ypsi, and then I drive 20 more minutes to the north side of Ann Arbor. I get there at 9:30. I leave at 3:30, reverse engineer that trip every day, Monday through Friday most days. Then I get back online at night, get a job, their hours back. It's a grind. But they're gonna treat my boy right. We do this routine because the program my son is in says it's better for boys and for boys of color. And I don't mind because on the way to school, even though we pass the closed neighborhood elementary school and children waiting on buses, cold or hot, we're driving for the promise. So we take advantage of the car ride. And frankly, as a working mom, sometimes that's the rare quality time with him. So we process, we talk, we kick it. I ask those questions that are easy for him to answer when he's behind me than when we're looking eye to eye. Sometimes he'll say, you wanna play What Animal Am I Thinking Of, Mom? And I'm like, yeah, let's play What Animal Are You Thinking Of? And he'll say, what animal am I thinking of? And I'll say, squirrel. And he'll go, how'd you know? And I'll say, because you say that shit every time. Squirrel, snake. My car is older now. I used to like fast, new cars, but I got a baby and bills, so I got an old car. In between oil changes, that ton of steel does us right. And those precious memories of my baby carry us on for weeks and weeks and weeks. And every now and again, he'll ask, excited to get to school, are we there yet? Mama, are we there yet? I grew up around cars and plants and IROCs and elite scooters and bamboo earrings, at least 2 pair, and boblo boats and barges on the Detroit River. Until crack hit and Mom loaded up the car and we came to Ann Arbor. It's a better education, baby. They got nicer trees. Ain't no crack there. And as soon as I got a license, I drove my ass right back to Detroit. Again and again and again. Bangers and boys and bars at the lodge in 94, shit. Are we there yet? My girl would say. Transportation in this country is 1 part innovation, 2 parts oppression. Did you hear me? Transportation in this country is 1 part innovation, 2 parts oppression. Don't believe me? Just watch the gas price this weekend. In our DNA is a history of ships and boats and buses and cars and factories and trains transporting people at the whims of capitalists, supremacists, and colonizers. Massa, who took our babies and my breast milk, who seek our token in the change box or the shackles on our feet, he sees them as his birthright. Transportation has a violent history for Black, brown, and indigenous people. Shout out to the Underground Railroad, or what we have done without Sojourner or Harriet. Exactly 400 years ago this month in 1619, Black bodies laid in the filth of the hull of a ship while colonizers danced and drunk in dreams of colonialism. The Amtrak train you ride transforms transpo in the 20th century, tracks built by Japanese folks imprisoned in internment camps, fancy name for plantations. Those tracks rolled over native lands and sacred spaces to move oil and coal and parts to plants. 300 years later, bus boycotts and batons meet fools fleeing to a motor city for $5 a day offered by an anti-Semite. Ford F-150s and Chevy Camaros built on the backs of accounts sucked dry in Black neighborhoods, Black bodies, and secret salats. Your Islam ain't welcome here, but make that car, boy. And even up until last year, 399 years ago, the poorest school district in our county spent $140,000 to transport homeless children in Ypsilanti. Yesterday, as I was preparing to come before you, I spoke to the director of the Family Empowerment Plan, and he told me the story of Kari. We'll just call him Kari. Kari's mom lost her housing voucher, and she moved back to grandma's in Detroit. But Detroit schools ain't good, so she wanted Kari in Ypsi, right? And Ypsi will help transport Kari because they need Kari in Ypsi, right? Because how do we sustain schools but with children, with tax dollars? And so every day, a cab drives to Detroit to pick Kari up. And Kari gets up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and he gets dressed, he gets his breakfast, and he gets in that cab, and he drives for an hour. And occasionally, the taxi cab driver might conversate with him, but mostly there's WJR playing, and Kari is quiet. No one's talking to him. No one's asked him, what animal am I thinking of? And then you wonder why 90% of Black boys in Ypsi community schools are not reading at grade level. Because we don't see them and we don't talk to them, and Kari's in the car for 2 hours round trip because mom's got to work because she got to get the car back. And every now and again, when the cabbie does talk, Kari asks, are we there yet? Peace.
Yo, Deed, Miss Finn Johnson, everyone. Thank you so much for that. We've got one more speaker lined up for the Story Slam portion of the evening. And after that, we're going to have some musical excitement and stick around, mix and mingle. I hope to speak to each and every one of you. Our next speaker has done stand-up. He has been a puppeteer. You may know him from his smiling face at BZ's Cafe. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, Jesse Earhart Jacobs.
Hello. How's everybody? Good. All right. Can you hear me? Okay. So my story takes place in 2006. I'm an extremely immature 21 years old. I'm in an on-again, off-again relationship. And it's not good. It should have ended probably 2 months prior. But we have a trip to the Bahamas planned. And so it's get through this trip, and then we can just separate. It's not as heavy as it sounds. We're just a bad couple. Like I still have not figured out what we had in common or liked about each other. We did have the same name. That's one thing that I know we had in common. So barf. But all right, where are we? So we're landing in the Bahamas. It's kind of the middle of the night. The cab driver is telling us about all of this great stuff to do. I'm kind of getting excited about it. We get into the hotel, which is like an all expenses paid resort type of, like it was kind of dumpy. But I see scooter rentals, like as we're walking in. And I'm like, hell yes, let's get scooters tomorrow and we'll go explore the city. And Jesse's on board for this idea. Still feels wrong referring to my girlfriend as Jessie. So the morning happens. That night we went to this open bar and we had several pina coladas and glasses of rum. So it's morning and I'm hungover and I'm in the shower. Jessie's like 30 minutes ahead in the day of the schedule than I am. So she's saying to me while I'm in the shower, hey, I'm gonna run downstairs and rent a scooter. And I'm like, that sounds great. But did you say a scooter or scooters? And she said, I'm gonna get one scooter. And I'm like, you need to get 2 scooters. She's like, no, that's ridiculous. I'm sitting on the back of your scooter. This is how it's gonna happen. And I'm getting this sense that like this is a hill she's willing to die on. And I'm like, there has to be 2 scooters. And she very clearly is kind of like, okay, fine, I'll get 2. And I know there's not gonna be 2. So I finish getting ready. I walk downstairs, I walk outside, and I see Jessie, the scooter dude, and a scooter. And she's just like looking right at me, like, I won. like hop on. Scooter dude tells me that I just need to get on the scooter, like drive around the parking lot, prove that I'm not gonna crash it, and then we can go. 34-year-old me would have immediately taken that as an opportunity to bomb this test. 21-year-old me didn't think about that at all. 21-year-old me was like, I'm being tested, like I need to do well. I need to do really, really well. So I get on the scooter and I start going and it's awful. It's horrible. I'm so bad on this fucking scooter. It's insane. Like it's like jerking. Like every single turn requires me to come to a complete stop and physically turn around. Like this is like a small parking lot and I guarantee you it took me 60 seconds or more to just make this quick circle. And I'm pulling back up to the guy and I'm like, there's no way that he's gonna let us go. Like he just can't let us go. And the dude hands Jesse a helmet and is like, all right, you guys are good, see ya. And I can't believe that he's letting me go. What I really can't believe is that Jesse is willing to get on the back of the scooter with me. Like you just saw what I did. So anyways, we're going. 34-year-old me also would have just I mean, I'm not doing this. This isn't happening. I'll be at the bar. But we're going. So we pull out into the streets of Nassau, and it's a disaster from the get-go. Like, very quickly, I remember, like, turning down a one-way street, going the wrong way, and just, like, there's this assault of cars coming in. I still can't turn, so I'm, like, but it's, like, fast. Has anyone been to the Bahamas? The traffic, like, the way they drive is it's like a death wish. Like, it's insanity. I'm terrified. This scooter is not a Vespa. It's kind of somewhere in between like motorcycle and scooter. Like, it goes like 60 miles an hour, and I'm frequently going like that fast. But I'm also I'm at the edge of the road, just right here. Well, there's like this, like the cars were like, it was like driving through a swarm of bees. Like, it was so insane. I remember going up a really steep bridge at one point, and I've got it floored, and I'm just watching the speedometer drop. And then we cross over, and I'm just braking, and I'm just watching the speedometer rise. This is a tragedy waiting to happen. And I can stop it at any moment. I'm just having opportunity after opportunity, and I'm taking none of them. Like, we're just going. We're driving along, turns are getting easier. One thing that's happening though is that like as I turn and like our weight shifts, Jesse kind of keeps like shifting the other way, like, ugh. And so it's making all of our turns really wide, but we're turning. So we do hit this stretch. We're going along. I'm not really having to make turns. I'm still right here, but I'm ignoring the swarm of bees. And I remember looking out and just seeing the Caribbean, and it was so beautiful. Like, it's just this blue, it's the morning, it's idyllic. And then a stone wall begins to appear to my left. Like, it starts low, but it ends up getting like really high, like up to the ceiling. And this is a stone wall made out of like big stones, like the size of these chairs. Just big stone wall. And there's like a foot of dirt, and then road, and then me on the edge of the road. And I see a sign that basically says something like dangerous curve ahead. And like, I know in that moment, this is like, I know it's gonna happen. Like, the sinking feeling is immediate and it's real. And we start making it through the turn, and like, it's kind of working. And then I can feel that weight shifting behind me. And I'm just watching the front tire like get closer and closer and closer to the dirt. And as soon as it hits that dirt, we just completely lose control. And we're just bouncing along this wall. I have no idea how long it took to come to a stop. We could have bounced for like 25 yards. But it's just boom, 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 boom. And we do come to a stop, and I'm standing up. We're still standing. Like, everything seems like it's like this could have worked out. This could be fine. And then I hear the most terrifying, blood-curdling scream I've ever heard in my entire life coming from behind me. And it's Jesse. And I look down, and I see a knee that's just like hamburger. Like, she was sitting behind me, and all of those stones are just pummeling her knee. So this didn't work out fine. I see there's a driveway. There's like a driveway like 10 yards in front of me. So I like am scrooching us up to this driveway, and we get in, and like I'll never forget this image of Jessie. She just like launched herself off of the scooter and just goes thud onto the ground. Like, I always the image kills me. I always see like in the nature documentaries, like when whales breach and then they fall back into the, like, that's exactly what this looked like, except it was a human, and it was just boom down to the ground. and she's just holding her knee, and she's screaming, and it's not a scream, it's like a wail, like, well, not a whale, but like a wail. There's like desperation and fear and emotion. Like this woman sounds like she just found out that this is the end, and she's thinking about how much she doesn't want to go. And I have nothing to say. Like, it's 2006. We did get a prepaid international cell phone to take with us, and I know exactly which pocket of the luggage it's in at the hotel. So that's nothing. I look around and I realize that there's an office like across the street. Like, I just need to cross the street and I can get to this office. I take off and I take 2 steps and I just fall down. Because I realized that apparently I had stuck my foot out to try to stop us. And so my foot is just covered in blood and mangled. Sorry that my story's gross. So anyways, I hobble across the street, I get there, I go to open the door and it's locked. And I'm looking inside and I can see 3 women around a reception, desk type of thing. And I'm just pounding on the door, just pounding. And they're just looking at each other and then me, what the hell do you want, dude? And so I'm making the phone sign, phone, I need a phone. And they're still just what am I supposed to do? So at one point, I'm holding up my helmet. And I'm pointing at the helmet and then pointing back down at the mangled foot and then going back to phone sign. And I'm just making this addition to how can you not understand what's going on? One of them saunters around and opens up the door and she's yeah. And I'm I don't even know what I said. I think I probably just yelled out there's an accident, call whoever you have to call. I don't know where I am, but I'm over there. Help. So I go back over to where Jessie is in this what's it called? Driveway. She had, nothing has moved on. That's not a criticism, but she's still exactly in just wailing. There's no, it hasn't moved on to bargaining or questions or anything like that. It's still just this unleashing. This driveway that we're in, this is the driveway to somebody's fucking estate. This is a wealthy person's driveway. There's a wrought iron gate. There's cameras. The only thing that has changed is that a gardener has heard her screams and he's made his way down to see what's going on. And he's just as worthless as I am in this situation. He's standing there, he's got a rake over his shoulder and a bucket in his hand. He's this little old dude. And there's this woman just in desperate need of help and assistance, and there's just 2 useless guys standing there staring at her. And finally, somebody less useless shows up. It's a guy blows past us, and he's on a cell phone, and he's yelling into the cell phone the address of where we are, get here quick, there's a woman down, get an ambulance. So an ambulance comes. We get in it. I don't have health insurance, and so I'm just refusing to let anyone touch me. Jesse's getting work done. I do remember the ambulance guy he's you at least need to stop bleeding onto the give me your foot, So we get there, we arrive at this really nice hospital. Jesse's calmed down at this point. We go right into the emergency room. Her doctor looked exactly like Mekhi Phifer, who in 2006 was the shit. And we're making jokes about, you know what I mean? It's yeah, this is awful, but look what we get out of this. We wouldn't have met Mekhi. So she's getting worked on, and a woman pulls me aside, and she's come to this back office with me, and she takes me to an office. She's okay, does she have international insurance, do you know? And I'm I don't know. She's does she have insurance? I'm I'm sure she does. She's that's fine, we'll send you a bill. So right now, it looks like it's gonna be about $16,000 or something. It could have been any number, it doesn't matter. And I'm like, okay, so I don't have $16,000. And she's like, can you get 16,000? And I'm like, I'm not getting it. And so she very calmly says, okay, so I need you to go back out there and tell them to stop working on her as fast as you can. And so I'm like freaking, and I'm like hobble running, trying to get back to this, and I like show up in the emergency room, and I'm just like, stop working on her. And everyone's like, what? And I'm like, we don't have money. And I swear to God, everyone was like, oh, shit, no. Oh, okay. We're like, so what now? And they're like, well, it's no big deal. We'll just send you to the state hospital. And I'm like, well, what's this? And they're like, this is like a really fancy private hospital that we took. Like, I'm like, why the fuck didn't you take me there in the first place? And they're like, because look where you were. Like, we thought you had money. And I'm like, I don't have money. And they're like, yeah, I know. So we have to get transported back to the hospital in an ambulance. And I'm fighting it. Like, I'm fighting it so hard. I'm like, I can't pay for another ambulance. Like, I can't pay for the first one. And they're like, well, I have to send you. And I'm like, well, we're at an impasse then, aren't we? And the woman's like, dude, you don't have to pay for any of this. Like, we're gonna give you a bill, but it's not like just go home. Like, it's not like we're waiting at the hospital or at the airport on Friday. And I was like, could I have just taken any, like, could you have just worked on us and I could have just left? She's like, yeah. Like, so we get sent to the state hospital, which is significantly different. It very clearly was a grocery store recently. Like, and I mean, it's better than having no health care, like here. But anyways, so I'm in there. They take Jesse into like the emergency room. I'm in the waiting room, like filling out papers, and like there's a dude sitting next to me, holding like a towel to his head that's like so soaked with blood that it's dripping, and I'm watching it drip and just land on his shoe. And again, really naive and experienced 21-year-old, and I'm amazed that I'm not bursting out crying at this point. Shortly thereafter, two very large, intimidating police officers enter the hospital looking for me. They find me. The guy really made a big deal. He's like, okay, I'm gonna give you a form. Don't worry about what it says, but I do have to give you this form. And I'm like, okay. And he hands it to me in just like huge letters. It says, this is like your notice of intent to prosecute. Like, the Bahamas want to prosecute me now. He's like, don't worry, no one's gonna do anything, it's fine. Again, you get to just go home. This is the very first thing that we did on the very first day of a week-long trip with two people who I know do not want to be together anymore. They sent us home each with like 100 Percocet. Like, it was amazing. So we had so much medicine in an open bar, and heavy injuries, so we really couldn't do anything. I really don't remember us talking for the rest of that trip. Like, we definitely didn't discuss the accident. Like, nobody, it was amazing. Nobody was like, this is your fault or anything. We just moved on from it, and I think that was probably the best connection that Jesse and I ever had right there in that moment. was like, we don't need to talk about this. And yeah, then it was fly back home. And I think we got to the airport and got in separate cars, and we didn't even have to break up. We just drove in opposite directions. Yeah, and that was it. And so yeah, that's pretty much that's the end of the story. Yeah, thank you. Uh-huh.
Let's hear it for Jesse Earhart Jacobs, everybody. Okay. Is Ryan still here? Ryan? Okay, if Ryan is not here, we I'm sorry? Ryan is here, yes. Okay, so we're going to do a couple of brief impromptu stories. We got to the end of the program speakers. I have two people waiting to do a brief story because they were inspired. And if you were similarly inspired, there will be more opportunities later on. Thomas Dunn, who told one of our stories tonight, is going to be doing an improv set later that you are welcome to get up and do some spoken word along with him and his soundscapes. So please do feel free to jump in on that later on if you would like to. In the meantime, we're going to have an impromptu story right now from Ryan. Give him a big round of applause, please.
Thank you. All right, so this is a true story from about 12 years ago. It takes place at the residence of 55 Burbank Avenue, apartment number 2, right over there by Roy's Squeeze In. All right, so I just graduated high school recently. I was 18 at the time, and my parents were getting divorced again. So we were me and my mom moved back out to Ypsi again. And it was a couple months after their split, she had started seeing this guy, Dennis. It was the first guy she started seeing since their second divorce. And as a child, during their first divorce, she had a tendency to do what we all do and give benefit of the doubt to the guys she was seeing, despite them all being douchebags. So now that, I'm a grown man of 18, dumb at 18, but, protective of my mom from the history that I knew with her dating life, I was a little guarded of this guy, Dennis, right? And she was doing her typical thing, date one, it was like, they go out on a date. Okay, how is he, Mom? Oh, he's nice. Yeah, he's nice, not much to say about him. Date two, all right, how'd it go? Well, he lives out in Irish Hills and he wears a lot of leather and rides a Harley and stuff, but he's nice, Date 3 comes along and, how was it, He's nice, I just wish he didn't talk about John McCain so much, but he's nice. And it's like, so by this point, I've got him pinpointed on my radar. This guy is most likely another douchebag, but I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt and test the waters with him. So, date 4, she decides they've been seeing each other for maybe 6 weeks now. He needs to meet her baby boy, right? So I was hanging out in town, and we didn't have a Ziggy's back in. I'm here pretty much every day. Back then, it was the Double Eagle Coney Island, right? So I was hanging up there because, what do us broke Ypsi kids do, Well, we go to the Double Eagle Coney Island and hang out, and there they let you drink unlimited pots of coffee. So I got super caffeinated, kind of stoned a little bit. Not blown out of my mind, but just a little stoned. And I'm riding my moped home. Thanks for throwing out the theme of transportation, because I had this badass moped at the time. It wasn't badass, it was badass to me. It was a 1982 Suzuki FA50 that topped out at 27 miles per hour. You could get it anywhere in town here in Ypsi on that. This place is so traversable, you don't even need a car living in Ypsi. And I had this moped, and I had this red skateboard helmet that I put yellow racing stripes down, and I put a propeller on the top of it from this toy that I bought at the Rocket. I just thought it was funny, but it came in handy. I'm on my way home, and I get this call from my mom. She's talking about Dennis is coming over to meet me, and we're having him over for dinner. So I went to work on a little method acting project to test the waters with Dennis. I went home, I kept the fucking helmet on. And I put on this green and white horizontal striped t-shirt and pajama pants, which I pulled up way up over my tummy. And I sat on the porch, not on the porch, on the stoop of the apartment waiting for Dennis to arrive. My mom didn't know I did any of this. She was preoccupied in the kitchen cooking spaghetti. I went in, got dressed, went right back out. Helmet on, and caffeinated, so I had this kind of shake to me. Chain smoking, waiting for Dennis to arrive. And I'm sitting, right? I'm sitting. And he pulls right up, right? And I see this dude. It was like I pictured him in my head before he even arrived. Like Ford F-350, giant truck. He's got that like late 50s country guy, like orange skin, smoked his whole life, gray beard, cut off Harley shirt, and just, ooh, mom picked a winner this time. He pulls right in, he sees me, I see him, we lock eyes. Mind my appearance, all right? As soon as I see him, I pop up, throw my cigarette down, right? And I walk over to the driver's side window of his car, like this. And I do this little gesture, I go. His window comes down, and I spoke the only word I ever spoke to this motherfucker. I said, hi. And I walked back inside. I went inside my room, and I turned the volume on max on my TV and turned on my Nintendo Entertainment System at the time, which had Double Dragon in it, and I just left the menu screen music playing on repeat max volume, so just on repeat while he came in after that awkward encounter and started talking to my mom. I was in my room, I had no idea what was going on. She was cooking dinner. So for about 30 minutes of this, right? So at one point, I get a knock at the door and I hear my mom, Ryan, dinner's ready. And I just ignored her. Let her knock again. Ryan, dinner's ready. She gets a little louder every time, ignored her. I let her do this 4 times. At the end, it's like, Ryan, dinner's ready. Turn the music off. I go, huh? Dinner's ready. Okay, Mom. And I come walking up. And I sit down at the table, right? And it's the 3 of us. It's the 3 of us. Plates of spaghetti. I have no idea what the interaction between the 2 of them are. They're not saying anything to one another. And I have no idea what they look like because I'm just intently staring at my plate of spaghetti, slowly twirling it on the end of my fork. Fork in the center of the plate, twirling it. You know, like when you twirl spaghetti and it bunches up? I did this for so long that the whole plate of spaghetti was swirling on the plate. Awkward silence and just that for what felt like forever. I still got the jitter shakes and stuff, you know, from all the coffee. At one point, my mom breaks the silence. She goes, "So Ryan, how was your day?" And at that point, I stopped twirling the spaghetti. I speared a single meatball really hard. Shot a glance at Dennis. Ate that shit. Hopped up. Right back to my room. Right back to my room. Right? Hours went by. Dennis left. My mom knocks on my door and I come out, answered her, dressed normal. And she was so embarrassed, she was so pissed off, she yelled at me, and all I could think was, "You'll thank me later." I never saw Dennis again. They went out one more time on October 12th, her birthday. Our birthdays are 18 days apart. This will be relevant later. But October 12th, they go out. She's getting ready to go out. Gonna go meet Dennis. She goes and meets him for dinner. Comes back an hour later. I say to her, "Mom, what happened?" She said, "He's a fucking asshole. That's what happened." I I said, well, what happened? She said, I sat down to talk to him, and the first thing he said, the first words out of his mouth was, you know, you should have told me ahead of time that you have a retarded kid. Wow, right, it gets better. So 18 days later, it's my 19th birthday. Mind you, this story, I was a grown man, technically, legally. 19 now. Me and my mom go have a mother-son dinner up at Sidetrack. And in the time we were gone, someone visited the apartment to drop off a gift. We get back, there's this large box on the stoop with a happy birthday card on it. My mom looks at it, says, oh, hey, look, someone got you a birthday present, and just goes right to doing her own thing. So I go into my room with this large parcel and the birthday card. I open the box first, and it's just full of video game stuff, like 12 Xbox games, 2 controllers, some old retro cartridges, just all kinds of shit. And I wonder, who's this from? I open the card. It's a happy birthday card. Read through it, and at the end it says, Dear Angie, my mom's name, haven't heard from you in a long time. Hope all is well. By the way, tell the kid I said happy birthday. Signed, Dennis. XOXO. Thank you.
All right, give it up for Ryan. And wrapping up this Ypsi Story Slam, we're going to have one more impromptu story before the music begins, so do stick around for that. But right now, we're going to welcome to the stage Shelly.
Who also does not wear my hat in public, so. Oh, take time. I am not a professional storyteller like these other people. You guys are awesome, so to all of you. Former Head Start teacher here, Shaker Heights resident, Ohio. I got on a Greyhound bus way long ago now. I think it's Ugly Mug or some coffee house. Drove up here, went to Eastern, and never left. Love this town. So, once upon a time, long time ago, my departed husband, my 2 kids went over to Eastern's Family Fun Day. We had a lot of fun, including climbing the water tower all the way uppity, 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 up, walking around the catwalk. Transportation, you know. So we had to get our butts up there with 2 kids. They were having a great time. My husband was against the wall the whole time. It was so fun. He wouldn't step out, look off, whatever. Oh, sorry. So he couldn't stand it up there. Anyways, we went down. We went over to Mark Jefferson, dipped our hand in, waxed it, all kinds of wonderful things. And my husband's like, I got to get out of here. So he took the son and left, went home. Me and my daughter had a great time. So we're leaving, and we said, okay, called my husband on a payphone because we didn't have a cell phone. Anyways, called him on a payphone, and he said, okay, we'll meet you at, like, the water tower. Pick us up over there. So I said, cool. So we go over, and we walk by the water tower. This is not a lie, you guys. All of a sudden, I hear, hello, hello, we're locked in the water tower. Can you get us out? I'm like, we're being punked. Where's the cameras? What in the hell is going on? And I'm like, you're in the water tower? And it's locked. I mean, the padlock, if you've ever seen it, is this big. So I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. They're like, no, somebody didn't do the final walkthrough, and we're stuck up here. So I said to them, I covered my daughter's ears, make history, Mile High Club, come on, people. This is Ypsi. That's a water tower you're in. It's, you know, self-explanatory. Why not? In a minute. Shh. But anyways, I let her ears go, and they said, no, we have an infant with us. We have this little car seat there, you know, those baby bugs, they had to get up and down and up and down. I said, oh my goodness. So, what do? This is back in the day, and I don't know, I'm probably the oldest person in this room, but anyways, there used to be a place called Jacoby's Hair Salon. It was an African-American hair salon. So I walk over there with my daughter with her long red hair, and I walk in the place, and it's like an Eddie Murphy movie. The Clippers stop. Time stops. Can I help you? And people in various sizes of, hair weaves and stuff, beard trimming, everything stops. Clippers, everything. They thought I was really lying. They thought I was punking them. I said, no, really, please, somebody call 911. So time stops. I leave, my daughter's following behind me, and here I have a trail of people with clippers and hair and wah, 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 and we go to walk across. And that is Washtenaw at that point. And so happened to be coming down Washtenaw was a police officer. And I walk straight in the street, and I do like this. I've led so many field trips, I can't tell you. So I just walk naturally in the street and stop. 3 lines of traffic right there. And I say to this officer, because he flipped his lights on, officer, there's people lodged in the water tower. And he says, no, you're lying to me, you're punking me. I said, no, sir, really, there are people in this water tower. So now we've got about 15 or 20 people circling the water tower. And if you guys know anything, Yucca owns the water tower, the police don't. So they have to call my neighbor, Dan Asher, who is a Yucca dude and has the keys. So in all this, it's maybe 5 or 10 minutes. Here I see my husband driving in his white junker Buick, piece of mess, like pushing my child down, because, sorry, we didn't have a good car seat back in the day. And he's pushing my child down in the backseat, and I see his eyes getting big as saucers. And he's pulling off of Cross Street, down by Ted's Pills and things, which doesn't exist anymore. And I see him looking like, what in the hell have you done now? So I sneak, I grab my daughter's hand, and I know the police have got this, and I know Dan Asher's on his way, so I quietly take my daughter, and I took my daughter, grabbed her by the hand, got in the Buick, and we left. And I've always wondered to this day whatever happened to the couple and their kid. That's my story, and it's true.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would love to give a heartfelt thanks to all of our storytellers tonight. Please give a big round of applause to all of our storytellers. Thank you all so much for sharing your stories with us, sharing your humor, sharing your wisdom, sharing your truth. We're going to have some music going on later tonight. A reminder, before you leave, please do grab one of the surveys on the shelf so you can give us some feedback about how we did. We're going to have, Eric did not want me to introduce him, but Eric Wozniak is going to do some DJing. In a little bit, we'll have rapper Lucy Luya. We have Thomas Dunn playing later if you want to get up and do some spoken word with him. He's amenable to that. We have MC Trash Pedal in the house. Lots of fine stuff going on. Please stick around at Ziggy's. Thank you again so much for coming to the Ypsi Story Slam. Wozniak, you're on duty.